Have you ever noticed that the greatest battles in your life often happen where no one can see them? Before your feet take a single step, your mind has already traveled 1,000 miles. Before tomorrow even arrives, you have already imagined every possible disaster. Before a single problem has touched your hands, fear has already convinced your heart that you cannot survive it. You lie awake at night, searching for answers that never come. You replay yesterday's mistakes until they become chains around your soul. You worry about tomorrow until today's blessings pass you by unnoticed. But listen carefully, because this truth has the power to change your life forever. The burden you were never created to carry is crushing the very peace God wants you to live in. The storm inside your thoughts has become louder than the voice of the one who created you. Today, that storm can end, not because your circumstances suddenly become perfect, but because God has never surrendered his throne to your fears. There are countless people who appear strong on the outside while quietly collapsing within. They smile in front of others, yet their hearts are exhausted. They accomplish great things, yet they never experience rest. Their minds never stop racing. Every decision feels dangerous. Every delay feels like failure. Every unanswered question becomes another reason to panic. They believe that if they think hard enough, worry long enough, or prepare for every possible outcome, they can somehow control the future. But overthinking has never created peace. It only creates heavier chains. Anxiety disguises itself as responsibility, but it slowly steals your joy. Fear disguises itself as wisdom, but it slowly blinds your faith. Endless analysis disguises itself as preparation, but it often becomes a prison where hope slowly dies. God never intended for your mind to become a battlefield that defeats you every single day. He created you with the ability to think, but not to become a prisoner of your own thoughts. There is a tremendous difference between wisdom and worry. Wisdom listens for God's direction. Worry listens to fear. Wisdom walks one faithful step at a time. Worry runs in circles until exhaustion becomes normal. Wisdom trusts that God already sees tomorrow. Worry acts as though everything depends entirely upon human strength. One leads to peace. The other leads to despair. Think about how many moments have been stolen from your life simply because your thoughts refuse to become still. How many beautiful mornings were consumed by imagining terrible outcomes that never happened? How many precious opportunities passed because fear convinced you that failure was certain? How many prayers remained unfinished because anxiety interrupted your confidence? The greatest thief is not always suffering itself. Sometimes it is the expectation of suffering that steals the present long before the future ever arrives. The human heart desperately longs for certainty. It wants guarantees before obedience. It wants explanations before trust. It wants visible evidence before faith. But God's way has never depended upon seeing every step before moving forward. If every answer were placed before you today, there would be no room for trust. If every obstacle disappeared before your journey began, courage would never grow. If every mystery were explained, faith would become unnecessary. God is not asking you to understand everything. He is asking you to remember who remains in control even when you understand very little. Many people spend their lives trying to carry tomorrow before tomorrow ever comes. They carry next year's worries into today's decisions. They carry imaginary conversations that never happen. They carry fears that never become reality. They carry disappointments that exist only in their imagination. Eventually, their shoulders become so heavy that even blessings feel difficult to receive. The weight was never meant to belong to them in the first place. God's power has never been limited by human uncertainty. While your mind races through endless possibilities, God already sees the complete picture from beginning to end. While you struggle to understand one chapter, God already knows the entire story. While you question every delay, God understands every purpose hidden within it. Nothing surprises him. Nothing confuses him. Nothing catches him unprepared. The future that frightens you is already fully visible to the God who holds time itself in his hands. Sometimes the greatest obstacle standing between you and peace is not your circumstances. It is your determination to remain in control. Control feels safe because it gives the illusion that everything depends upon your effort. But the harder you grip what belongs to God, the more exhausted you become. You were never designed to govern every outcome, manage every detail, or predict every tomorrow. There comes a sacred moment when wisdom quietly whispers, "This burden is too heavy for me." That moment is not weakness. It is the beginning of freedom. There is extraordinary peace waiting for the person who finally admits that God is wiser than human understanding. Pride says, "I must solve everything." Fear says, "I must prepare for everything." Faith says, "God already knows everything." Those three voices compete every day inside the human heart. The voice you choose determines the direction of your life. If fear becomes your counselor, peace will always remain distant. If pride becomes your guide, rest will always seem impossible. But when God becomes your confidence, even unanswered questions lose their power to terrify you. Perhaps you have spent months trying to force open a door that refuses to move. Perhaps you have analyzed every conversation, every opportunity, every disappointment until your thoughts have become tangled beyond recognition. Maybe you keep asking yourself whether you missed the right moment, chose the wrong path, or failed beyond repair. Yet while your heart searches desperately for certainty, God continues inviting you into trust. Trust does not require complete understanding. Trust requires confidence in the one who never fails. The world often praises those who appear completely self-sufficient. It celebrates independence above surrender. It encourages people to believe that success belongs only to those who carry everything alone. But that philosophy eventually breaks the strongest person. Every human heart has limits. Every mind becomes weary. Every soul eventually discovers that endless striving cannot replace divine peace. God never called you to become your own provider, protector, and source of hope. He called you to walk faithfully while depending upon His strength rather than your own. Imagine what your life would become if your first response to uncertainty were no longer panic but prayer. Imagine waking each morning without immediately inviting fear into your thoughts. Imagine facing difficult decisions while believing that God is already working beyond what your eyes can see. Imagine discovering that peace is not the absence of questions, but the presence of unwavering confidence in God's faithfulness. This kind of life is not reserved for extraordinary people. It belongs to every person willing to release the illusion of control and place complete confidence in the one whose wisdom has no limits. Fear constantly demands evidence before believing. Faith moves because God's character is trustworthy even when circumstances remain unclear. Fear magnifies every obstacle until it seems impossible. Faith remembers that no obstacle has ever become greater than God's power. Fear counts the reasons something cannot happen. Faith remembers that human calculations have never defined God's possibilities. The battle has never been merely about your circumstances. It has always been about which voice will shape your heart. There will always be unanswered questions. There will always be moments when the road ahead disappears into uncertainty. There will always be seasons that stretch your patience beyond what feels comfortable. But uncertainty does not mean abandonment. Delay does not mean defeat. Silence does not mean absence. Even when your eyes cannot recognize His work, God continues accomplishing purposes greater than your imagination can measure. Every delay has a purpose. Every closed door has a reason. Every difficult season contains opportunities for deeper trust that comfort could never produce. Stop allowing your imagination to become a factory that manufactures fear. Stop giving tomorrow permission to steal today's strength. Stop treating every unknown as though it were already a disaster. Your future is not governed by anxiety. Your destiny is not determined by overthinking. Your hope does not rest upon flawless planning. Your confidence rests upon God, whose wisdom never fails, whose power never weakens, and whose faithfulness never comes to an end. There is a beautiful freedom waiting for those who finally release what they were never meant to carry. The mind that constantly races eventually becomes exhausted, but the heart that rests in God discovers strength that cannot be explained by human understanding. Peace begins when surrender becomes greater than fear. Rest begins when trust becomes stronger than doubt. Hope begins when you decide that God's promises deserve more attention than your worries. The greatest victory is not gaining complete control over life. The greatest victory is discovering that your life has always been safest in the hands of God. One of the greatest deceptions you will ever face is the belief that if you can simply think about a problem long enough, you will eventually master it. But there comes a point where thinking no longer serves wisdom. It begins serving fear. There is a quiet line that many people cross without realizing it. On one side is careful reflection. On the other is relentless obsession. The difference is profound. Reflection seeks God's guidance and then moves forward in faith. Obsession circles the same mountain day after day, never arriving at peace, because it has placed confidence in human reasoning instead of divine wisdom. If your thoughts never lead you to greater trust in God, then your thoughts are leading you in the wrong direction. Ask yourself an honest question. How much of your life has been shaped by events that never actually happened? How many tears have been shed over imaginary disasters? How many sleepless nights have been spent fighting battles that existed only in your mind? Fear has an incredible ability to make shadows appear larger than mountains. It whispers that the worst outcome is the most likely outcome. It convinces you that every delay is permanent, every closed door is final, every hardship is proof that hope has disappeared. Yet again and again, reality proves fear to be a false prophet. It promises certainty but delivers confusion. It promises protection but leaves you imprisoned. It promises control but robs you of peace. God never intended for fear to become your counselor. He never intended anxiety to become your daily companion. He never designed your heart to survive on endless worry. Your soul was created for something far greater. It was created to know the peace that comes from trusting the one whose understanding has no limits. There is incredible freedom in recognizing that you do not have to know everything because God already does. You do not have to carry every burden because God is stronger than every burden. You do not have to predict every tomorrow because every tomorrow already rests securely under His authority. Many people are waiting for peace to arrive after every problem disappears. They tell themselves, when this situation improves, then I will finally rest. But another challenge always comes. Another question appears. Another uncertainty rises. Peace built upon perfect circumstances will never last because life itself is filled with changing seasons. Lasting peace comes when your confidence is anchored in the unchanging nature of God rather than the changing conditions around you. Storms may come and go. Opportunities may appear and disappear. People may enter your life and then leave. Success may rise. Difficulties may increase. But God remains the same. His wisdom is not shaken by the chaos that shakes the world. There are moments when God allows uncertainty to remain because uncertainty reveals what certainty often hides. It exposes where your confidence truly lives. When every answer is available, anyone can appear confident. When every path is clear, anyone can seem courageous. But when the road disappears into darkness and you still choose to trust God, something remarkable begins to happen inside you. Your faith stops depending on comfort. It becomes rooted in conviction. Your hope stops depending on favorable circumstances. It begins resting upon the unchanging character of God. The greatest transformation in your life will not happen when your surroundings change. It will happen when your heart changes its response to those surroundings. Two people can face the same storm. One is consumed by panic. The other is filled with quiet confidence. The difference is not the size of the storm. The difference is where they have placed their trust. One measures the problem. The other remembers the greatness of God. One sees only limitations. The other remembers that human limitations have never limited God's power. Perhaps you have become so accustomed to carrying heavy burdens that you no longer remember what freedom feels like. You have lived with worry for so long that it seems normal. You have rehearsed fearful thoughts so many times that they sound like truth. But not every voice inside your mind deserves your attention. Not every thought deserves your agreement. Some thoughts are invitations to despair. Others are invitations to trust. Every day you make a choice about which invitation you will accept. Your thoughts shape your direction. What you repeatedly believe eventually becomes the foundation upon which you build your decisions. If you continually expect defeat, your courage begins to disappear before the battle even begins. If you continually expect disappointment, gratitude slowly fades from your heart. But when you continually remind yourself that God is faithful, your perspective begins to change. You start seeing opportunities where you once saw obstacles. You begin noticing hope where fear once dominated your vision. You discover strength that cannot be explained by your own abilities, because it comes from confidence in God rather than confidence in yourself. Do not underestimate the quiet power of surrender. The world often mistakes surrender for defeat, but surrender to God is the birthplace of true strength. It is the moment when pride releases its grip. It is the moment when fear loses its authority. It is the moment when your heart finally admits that God's wisdom is infinitely greater than your own understanding. There is no shame in reaching the end of your own strength. In fact, that may be the very place where God begins teaching you that His strength has always been more than enough. There are blessings that worry cannot produce. There are doors that anxiety cannot open. There are miracles that overthinking cannot manufacture. Some things will only happen after you stop striving to control every detail and begin trusting God with what lies beyond your understanding. Faith does not mean pretending challenges do not exist. Faith means refusing to allow those challenges to become greater in your mind than the God who reigns over them. Look carefully at the pace of your own life. Are you rushing because God is leading you or because fear is chasing you? There is an enormous difference. Fear always demands immediate answers. Fear cannot tolerate waiting. Fear insists that every delay is dangerous. But God is never rushed by the pressure that overwhelms human hearts. His timing is never late. His plans are never incomplete. His wisdom is never confused. What appears to be delay from your perspective may actually be preparation from His perspective. Sometimes the hardest lesson to learn is that waiting is not wasted when God is involved. While you think nothing is happening, your character is growing. While you believe every door has closed, unseen opportunities are being prepared. While you wonder whether your prayers matter, God continues working in ways your eyes cannot yet recognize. Growth often happens beneath the surface, long before it becomes visible. A tree develops deep roots before it reaches impressive heights. In the same way, God often strengthens your faith in hidden places before revealing the blessings He has prepared. You cannot fill your heart with constant fear and expect to experience lasting peace. The two cannot live together without conflict. One will eventually dominate the other. Every day you are planting seeds within your own soul. Thoughts of fear produce a harvest of anxiety. Thoughts anchored in God's faithfulness produce courage, endurance, gratitude, and hope. Be careful what you continually water with your attention. Whatever occupies your mind eventually shapes your future. Do not spend another year fighting battles that belong to God. Do not waste another season trying to unlock doors that only God can open. Do not sacrifice today's peace while attempting to control tomorrow's uncertainties. Your responsibility is not to rule over the future. Your responsibility is to remain faithful today. Leave tomorrow where it belongs, in the hands of God. Leave unanswered questions where they belong, in the wisdom of God. Leave impossible situations where they belong, in the power of God. There is a remarkable peace that enters the heart when it finally stops demanding explanations for everything. You may never understand every disappointment. You may never receive every answer you seek. You may never know why certain roads closed while others opened, but you can know this with complete confidence. God has never lost control, not for a single moment, not during your greatest disappointment, not during your darkest night, not during your deepest confusion. His authority remains unchanged. His wisdom remains perfect. His faithfulness remains unwavering. So let your heart become quieter than your fears. Let your trust become stronger than your questions. Let your confidence in God become greater than your confidence in your own understanding. The mind that constantly clings to control will always struggle for peace, but the heart that willingly rests in God's care discovers a freedom that no circumstance can steal. That is where true strength begins. That is where fear begins to lose its grip. That is where overthinking finally gives way to unwavering trust in the God who has always been worthy of it. There is a question that every heart must answer, whether it is spoken aloud or buried beneath years of silence. Who truly sits on the throne of your life? It is easy to say that you trust God when the road is smooth and the answers come quickly. It is easy to speak words of confidence when everything seems to be moving according to your plans. But what happens when the path disappears? What happens when the future becomes uncertain and your carefully arranged expectations begin to crumble? That is the moment when the true condition of your heart is revealed. Trust is not measured in comfort. It is revealed in uncertainty. Faith is not proven when everything makes sense. It is proven when you choose to believe that God is still good, still wise, and still in control, even when your understanding reaches its limit. Many people unknowingly worship certainty. They cannot move unless they know every outcome. They cannot rest unless every question has been answered. They cannot rejoice unless every possibility has been calculated. Yet certainty has become an idol that can never satisfy the soul. The human mind will always find another question to ask, another possibility to fear, another outcome to analyze. There is no finish line for a life built upon human certainty, because the future will always contain mysteries beyond your reach. Only when you release the demand to know everything do you discover the freedom of knowing the one who knows everything. Look honestly at your thoughts during the quiet moments of your day. What occupies your mind when no one else is around? Where does your heart naturally run when difficulty appears? Does it immediately race toward fear? Does it rush to endless planning? Does it become overwhelmed by imagined disasters? Or does it pause long enough to remember that God has never failed to uphold what belongs to Him? Your first reaction often reveals your deepest belief. That realization is not meant to condemn you. It is meant to awaken you. Because what can be recognized can also be transformed. Do not confuse activity with progress. A restless mind can work all day and accomplish very little. It can replay the same conversations, revisit the same disappointments, and rehearse the same fears until exhaustion becomes its only reward. But the heart that waits upon God gains a different kind of strength. It is not driven by panic. It is sustained by confidence. It is not hurried by fear. It is guided by wisdom. There is tremendous power in refusing to allow anxiety to dictate your pace. Sometimes the strongest decision you can make is to become still before God instead of becoming louder than your fears. The world teaches that control is strength. God teaches that trust is strength. The world says you must carry everything yourself because no one else will. God reminds you that burdens become lighter when they are placed where they belong. The world tells you to depend completely upon your own understanding. God calls you to recognize that human understanding has limits, while His wisdom has none. Every day you are deciding which voice deserves your obedience. Every day you are choosing whether fear will shape your perspective or whether God will shape it. There are moments when God allows your own plans to reach their limits, not to destroy you, but to rescue you from believing that your future depends entirely upon your own ability. How many times have you looked back and realized that what once seemed like a terrible disappointment eventually became an unexpected blessing? How many closed doors later protected you from paths that would have brought greater pain? How many delays eventually revealed themselves as acts of divine wisdom rather than cruel interruptions? In the middle of those moments, you could not see the purpose. Looking back, you began to understand that God was accomplishing something far greater than immediate comfort. Perhaps today you are standing in a place where nothing makes sense. You have prayed, you have waited, you have tried to remain faithful, yet your circumstances seem unchanged. Your heart whispers questions that have no immediate answers. Be careful not to mistake silence for absence. Just because you cannot see God's hand does not mean He has stopped working. Seeds grow beneath the surface long before anyone sees the first sign of life. The deepest foundations are laid where human eyes cannot observe them. In the same way, God often performs His greatest work in the hidden places where faith continues even without visible evidence. The greatest victories are often won long before circumstances change. They are won inside the heart. The day you refuse to allow fear to define your future is a victory. The day you choose gratitude while your questions remain unanswered is a victory. The day you surrender your need to control every detail is a victory. Those unseen victories become the foundation upon which every visible breakthrough is built. Never underestimate what God is accomplishing within you while you are waiting for something to happen around you. There is also another danger that overthinking creates. It slowly steals your ability to recognize the blessings already surrounding you. A mind consumed by tomorrow rarely celebrates today. It becomes so focused on what might go wrong that it overlooks what God is already doing right. Gratitude begins to disappear. Joy becomes difficult to find. Hope slowly fades beneath endless concern. Yet every new day is evidence that God's mercy has not abandoned you. Every breath you take is proof that His provision continues. Every opportunity to begin again is a reminder that your story is still being written according to His wisdom rather than your fears. Do not spend your life staring at locked doors while forgetting to thank God for the doors that remain open. Do not become so consumed by unanswered prayers that you overlook the countless ways God has already sustained you. Reflection changes perspective. When you begin remembering His faithfulness, your fears lose much of their influence. You realize that the God who carried you through yesterday has not suddenly become unable to carry you today. His strength has not weakened. His wisdom has not diminished. His promises have not lost their power. Sometimes the battle is not against your circumstances at all. Sometimes it is against the story you keep telling yourself. If you continually declare that everything is falling apart, your heart begins to believe it. If you continually speak as though hope has disappeared, despair slowly becomes familiar. But when you continually remind yourself that God remains sovereign, regardless of what you feel, your perspective begins to change. Feelings rise and fall like waves, but truth stands firm. Emotions shift with every season, but God does not ask yourself another question. What are you feeding more each day, your fears or your faith? Every thought you entertain grows stronger through repetition. Every fear you continually rehearse becomes louder. Every truth about God's faithfulness that you continually remember becomes deeper. Your inner life is shaped by what you repeatedly allow to remain there. Guard it carefully. The condition of your thoughts eventually becomes the condition of your heart, and the condition of your heart influences the direction of your entire life. There comes a sacred turning point when a person grows weary of carrying unnecessary burdens. They finally realize that constant worry has never added peace, never shortened the journey, never strengthened the soul, and never changed the future. Instead, it has drained today's strength while promising tomorrow's security, a promise it can never fulfill. That realization opens the door to genuine surrender, not a surrender born from hopelessness, but a surrender born from confidence that God is infinitely more capable than human effort. So refuse to remain a prisoner inside the walls of your own imagination. Refuse to allow fear to write the story of your future before God has finished revealing His purpose. Refuse to measure your possibilities by your own limitations. Lift your eyes higher than your circumstances. Lift your heart above your doubts. Let every anxious thought become another reminder that God is greater. Let every unanswered question become another invitation to trust. Let every uncertain tomorrow become another opportunity to discover that the safest place your life has ever been is and always will be under the wise and faithful care of God. There is a quiet surrender that changes everything. It does not happen because every question has been answered. It does not happen because every obstacle has disappeared. It happens when the heart finally stops arguing with God's wisdom and begins to rest in it. Many people exhaust themselves trying to understand every detail before they are willing to move forward. They believe that complete clarity must come before complete trust. But the deeper truth is this: trust often comes first, and clarity follows later. God is not inviting you into a life where every step is explained in advance. He is inviting you into a relationship where His wisdom becomes greater than your need for explanations. Consider how much energy has been spent trying to rewrite moments that cannot be changed. How often have you replayed yesterday, wondering what would have happened if you had spoken differently, chosen another path, or recognized something sooner? Regret has a way of disguising itself as responsibility. It tells you that if you think about the past long enough, perhaps you can somehow change it. But yesterday no longer belongs to you. It has already passed beyond your reach. The only one who sees every mistake, every missed opportunity, every hidden lesson, and every future possibility with perfect understanding is God. He is not limited by your past. Why then should you allow your past to become greater than His power? Some of you have become prisoners, not because circumstances have locked the door, but because your own thoughts refuse to leave the prison. The chains around your heart were forged one fearful thought at a time, one assumption, one imagined failure, one repeated doubt, until eventually fear became so familiar that freedom itself began to feel uncomfortable. Yet hear this with all the strength your soul can receive. What has been built through repeated fear can be torn down through repeated trust in God. Every time you choose confidence instead of panic, another chain weakens. Every time you surrender a burden instead of carrying it alone, another prison wall begins to crack. Every time you remember God's faithfulness instead of magnifying your fears, your heart takes another step toward freedom. There is also another truth that many overlook. Overthinking rarely remains isolated. It spreads. It begins with one concern, then reaches into every area of life. Soon every opportunity is questioned. Every relationship is examined with suspicion. Every decision becomes exhausting. Joy disappears because the mind never allows the heart to simply receive the goodness of the present moment. This is why surrender is so powerful. It interrupts that endless cycle. It reminds the soul that life was never intended to be lived under the constant pressure of imagined catastrophes. This is the invitation before you today. Release the need to predict every tomorrow. Release the burden of carrying what belongs to God. Release the exhausting habit of measuring every possibility through the lens of fear. Let your heart become anchored in something stronger than circumstances. Let your thoughts become governed by truth rather than anxiety. Let your confidence rest where it has always belonged. Because the person who entrusts every fear, every question, every uncertainty, and every hidden burden to God does not become weaker through surrender. That person discovers a strength that fear can never produce, a peace that circumstances cannot destroy, and a steadfast confidence that continues to stand firm because it is rooted not in human understanding, but in the unchanging greatness, wisdom, and faithfulness of God. Now the moment has come when you must make a decision that no one else can make for you. You can continue allowing fear to occupy the place that belongs to faith, or you can surrender that place to God. You can continue carrying burdens that have exhausted your heart for years, or you can finally admit that they were never yours to carry. You can continue measuring your future by your own limited understanding, or you can begin measuring it by the limitless wisdom and power of God. Every day you postpone that decision is another day surrendered to unnecessary anxiety. Every day you choose trust is another day your soul steps into the freedom God has always desired for you. Do not leave this moment unchanged. Do not simply admire these words and then return to the same patterns that have stolen your peace. Let this be the day you confront the thoughts that have quietly ruled your life. Look honestly at the fears you have entertained, the doubts you have protected, and the worries you have allowed to grow stronger than your confidence in God. Ask yourself with complete honesty, have I trusted God, or have I trusted my fears more? Have I been living by faith, or have I been living under the authority of endless what-ifs? Those questions may be uncomfortable, but they have the power to awaken a sleeping heart. The greatest battles are often invisible. They are fought in the silence of the mind, where no one else can hear the conversations taking place within you. That is why this moment matters so deeply. Victory does not begin when every circumstance changes. Victory begins when your heart bows before God and declares, I will trust you even when I cannot see the way. That declaration shakes the foundations of fear. It breaks the grip of anxiety. It silences the lies that have whispered defeat for far too long. It is the quiet courage of a soul that has decided God's truth is greater than every anxious thought. Remember this, whenever uncertainty stands before you, the God who formed the heavens is not overwhelmed by your tomorrow. The God who knows every heartbeat has not forgotten your name. The God whose wisdom has no limits has not lost sight of your journey. Even when the road is hidden, he sees every step. Even when your strength feels small, his power remains complete. Even when your understanding reaches its end, his purpose continues without confusion or delay. Your confidence has never depended upon knowing everything. It has always depended upon knowing God. So lift your eyes higher than your fears. Lift your heart above your circumstances. Refuse to let anxiety become the language of your soul. Refuse to let overthinking steal another season of the life God has given you. Choose trust when fear demands surrender. Choose peace when worry demands attention. Choose obedience when uncertainty whispers retreat. Let your thoughts become a place where hope is cultivated instead of fear, where gratitude grows instead of complaint, and where confidence in God becomes stronger than every voice of doubt. When you leave this moment, carry one unshakable conviction with you. No burden placed into the hands of God is ever safer in your own. Release the weight you have been dragging through your days. Release the need to control what only God can govern. Release the fear that has convinced you everything depends upon you. Stand with a renewed heart, a steadier spirit, and a deeper trust. Walk forward with humility. Walk forward with courage. Walk forward with unwavering confidence that God is faithful in every season, wise beyond all understanding, and present in every step you take. And when fear returns, as it surely will, do not welcome it as a permanent guest. Meet it with remembrance. Remember who God is. Remember his faithfulness. Remember his wisdom. Remember his power. Let every anxious thought become another opportunity to place your trust where it belongs. Let every uncertain tomorrow become another invitation to depend more fully on God than on yourself. This is the path to lasting peace. This is the life that refuses to be ruled by fear. This is the awakening of a heart that has discovered its greatest strength is not found in holding tighter, but in surrendering completely to God. So today, choose differently. Choose faith over fear. Choose surrender over striving. Choose hope over despair. Let your life become a testimony that peace is not found in controlling every outcome, but in trusting the one who holds every outcome. Let your mind be renewed. Let your heart be strengthened. Let your purpose be restored. And may every step you take from this day forward be marked by unwavering trust, steadfast courage, humble obedience, and the unshakable confidence that God is enough, God is faithful, God is near, and God will never fail those who place their complete trust in him.
Não consigo esconder.